Without wisdom, cannot speak remain. Believe in recognition, but again.
All right, Deviser are a black metal band who actually I think started in Crete by the main member, and way back in 1989. So there weren't a lot of people in Greece making black metal back in 1989. You can imagine that some of his early work, which started around 1990, kind of fell apart and then picked a little bit back up in 92, 93. Involved folks who'd been involved in early records from Necromantia and Verathron and some other groups you probably haven't heard of, but are pretty interesting to the history of Greek extreme metal in general, like Horrified and the pre-Zamael project Nocturnal Death. There's a lot of really great trivia associated with this band, who are mostly known as a melodic black metal band, but they've never been a fully consistent stylized group. In fact, they started as a form of primitive death thrash, influenced by everything from Celtic Frost to Creator. So, in a lot of ways, this is a sort of late but early generation kind of thing. They took a long time to really get there. If you're a fan of like Denial of God, check out the Revelation of Higher Mysteries EP, the 7-inch, because it's a really cool relic that feels like old school thrash, but also black metal at the same time. So that was when the initial band kind of got together and started making music, and eventually they released Unspeakable Cults. Now, of course, this is a great album. If you haven't heard Unspeakable Cults, I had it for sale on my site for a while, on my Bandcamp or Big Cartel, and because it's an exceptional kind of open-minded black metal record for the time, and it's not typical Greek black metal, but it still speaks to the spirit of it and the heavy metal influences of it, a little bit of a gothic romanticist affect, and a lot of interest in metal in general. There's an enthusiasm to that record it's really interesting. So anyway, there was a couple of records they put out beyond that, and their history is really interesting, but most people don't really know more than the first record. Maybe they know the second because it's got a cool album cover, and the rest is kind of a mystery to most people because some of it's just all right. Running Sore is a little bit underrated, and Season of Darkness just sounds like Septic Flesh, and that was one of the last things they released other than an EP back in 2017, so it's been a while. And so Evil Summons Evil is a big deal, and I guess the weird thing about it is that it sounds a lot like Rotting Christ now. It sounds a little bit more typically Greek, and we'll get right into Cold Comes the Night as a clip to sort of illustrate that. Now, I have my own taste in the way that I like to listen to music. I like to listen to a complete album, maybe half and half, or I like to consider an album as designed for two sides, and that's just a habit. I can still appreciate an album that goes for singles, that wants every piece to be standalone and doesn't flow together. And I don't think that's exactly what Deviser have done here. I think this is more of a traditional heavy metal structured album from a black metal band who have put together a lot of these like kind of satanic anthems almost on this record, and there's a little bit of the sentimentality of like Sleep of the Angels era Rotting Christ, which I think if you're about my age, you'll remember just what Century Media was like in the early 2000s and late 90s, and you'll appreciate that this sound doesn't necessarily try to call back to that, but it has a lot of the same melodic values and a lot of bombast to the presentation that gives you a build up, a peak, and a turn down in a way that's very regular on the verve of this album. So it's a pleasant, straightforward listen. unless you're used to listening to records front to back, where a lot of it will feel like, 8 sort of startups in a row. The album is just starting with every piece. A Rotting Christ fan will understand this type of style, but yeah, this isn't going to sound like an underground Greek black metal throwback. It sounds like a modern band in this style, and I particularly still like it, and I really enjoyed this record. Gave it a fairly high recommendation for, even just not being structured the way I would normally like. But I really, I felt like a lot of these songs really stuck with me. I think their presentation was really sharp. Everything from like the music video, which, those are kind of cool and worth watching. It's just a cool thing in February to check out. Um, yeah, read more details in the review, and I'll post another clip here to play us out as the score posts.
With your wisdom